ladies and gentlemen, welcome back in the zone after a 1 week hiatus. We are thrilled to be back with you. That is not Pete, folks. I
Definitely
just
not.
wanted to say right off the get go, we have Pete in Alabama
Yes, sir.
doing the baseball and the softball of Babe Ruth. And what an undertaking that is when Pete gets back. We'll be excited to hear about that. But today we have Ken Stomsky, legendary Ken Stomsky at Community 15. Everybody knows him. He's my ride along today, and we got lots of information to take you through. It's a beautiful August 1st day. I wanted to say that again, August 1st. Somebody, please put the brakes on this summer for me. It's going way too fast. The good piece about it for me when summer ends is that basketball is going to start again. And so in the zone this summer, we really haven't had that much of a downtime, although we were off last week and are really excited to be back this week. I want to tell you why we're excited, Ken, to be back, because in the last 2 weeks before we went away, I almost didn't want to go away to Maine. It was really, really good time in Maine. I had a wonderful, wonderful time
It
there.
looked like you were having a good time up there.
Yeah, we did. And I didn't want to go, though, because our last two shows have absolutely blown through the meters as far as what kind of watching we're getting, what kind of viewership we're getting with likes and all the other stuff. So I wanted to talk to Pete about that as well. But we had over 500 views in 2 weeks. And that's exciting. And I wanted to thank everybody who watches us, who shares us, puts us out there, because we're doing a good job here. This is show number 67. I don't care if your name is Devin or Kevin. Put on In the Zone. Put it on, because then you get to go to heaven. All right, we're going to jump right off here. We have all sorts of information for you today because we were off last week and just excited to be back. So we're going to start off with some NCAA stuff right now. And last week, before we went away, we did some way too early stuff as far as top 25 goes. And a lot of people say, well, it's way too early. Right about now, August 1st is not that early. You have teams that are practicing, and I personally will have the excitement of going to watch UConn practice on Saturday, August 3rd. So this Saturday upcoming, I'm going to have the opportunity to go see UConn practice live, and really, really excited about that and going to enjoy that. And so when we jump off and we say, oh, way too early top 25, we're going to take you through ours today. Ours is always different. Our draft is always different. I think we see things a little differently than some of the prognosticators that are out there, and that's fine. That's good. That's what makes this interesting. Discourse is really, really something that makes basketball exciting. We've had LeBron James and Michael Jordan debates on this. I'm personally a Larry Bird fan myself, but we're going to take you through our Super 25, our first Super 25 of the year. And this is something that we do every single week during the basketball season. We get excited about it, but we wanted to just give you a little preview of where we see things right now. And there's a couple of overlays going into this season. Overlay number one, you have UConn going for the three-peat. Huge storyline going into this year's season. And one of the things that I said is, A, I wouldn't bet against them. B, I'm excited to see them practice. But right now, after viewing their roster, after watching them complete a lot of their offseason moves, I think this team is loaded up and ready to go. Husky Nation should be proud. Husky Nation should be excited because we put them right now, number one. We're not taking them out until somebody knocks off the king. And so in our way too early top 25, we have the caravan going again. Caravan's going to rock and roll. He's back. That was huge. I didn't have him down on our NBA first or second round. I think it's important that he came back. It's really important for UConn because he's that anchor. He's that leadership. You also have Aiden Mahaney coming from St. Mary's. Very, very solid. But I'm going to put you on a name that I think is going to be exciting this year in college basketball, and it's Samson Johnson, who's at UConn. Watched him a little bit at the end of the season last year, growing, really producing, sat behind some really good players and developed, but that's the UConn way right now. They are the best program in the country, as well as having back-to-back championships. There's no way I couldn't put them number one. Number two, the Houston Cougars. Kelvin Sampson is the reason. His defense is the reason. They'll put together a very good team. They've been nowhere out of the top 3 in the last couple of years. And again, I'm giving them the same respect I'm giving UConn. Knock them off. Alabama Crimson Tide. We got a couple of nicknames going out here, and the Crimson Tide this year will be known as Sears and Roebuck. Mark Sears, talented player, decided to come back, but there are some losses on this team that are going to be difficult to fill. But I wanted also to allude to this. Coach Oates, who's at Alabama right now, also was an assistant coach for Bobby Hurley when Bobby Hurley was the head coach at University of Buffalo. And so now you have this kind of connection where you have Danny Hurley at UConn dominating things. But if you look at that Alabama program in the college basketball landscape just recently, they've done some absolutely really good things. And I got them poised at number 3. I think their conference really helps them. I think they're loaded with talent as well. Here's a good reason for you. We call it a few good men, Kenny. And we're talking about Mark Few, the head coach of Gonzaga. And he's got a few good men coming back. We have them in the 4 spot. And this is the chance they're going to have, I think, Gonzaga, maybe to get back to that number 1 ranking, maybe to get back there. They have an unbelievable elite coach in Mark Few, and they also have a loaded team coming back with a good bunch of starters and a couple of gunners on that team that can really, really light it up. The Kansas Jayhawks at 5. We have the Kansas Jayhawks at 5. They've rebuilt their roster. They returned their big man, Hunter Dickinson. The only thing I say in this whole thing of the NIL is something that will have to be done, maybe in retrospect, is we're going to have to go back and look at some of the money that was spent and how well was the money spent. And did it tie up the program from getting other players? And that's part of it, because some of the money's finite right now, and it's going to be come a little bit more finite as it gets defined and sustained on the campuses, but it's also going to be limited as well. So that's going to be interesting to see how colleges now, especially with the big-time football programs, are going to delineate and break out their NIL arrangements. Here's a team I'm really, really excited about. Baylor. I think Baylor's going to be terrific this year. The Bears, I'm going to call them on the edge of Edgecombe. I think the young man Edgecombe is going to be one of the better players that they have in the game this year coming up. Everybody's excited about Cooper Flagg. I want you to keep an eye on this guy, Edgecombe, who's a freshman down at Baylor. He's going to be terrific. I'm going to put you on to 2 transfers that they've brought in, which I think could possibly elevate them into one of the best teams in the country. They have Norshard Ormir, who transferred from Miami, who's solid big man. And they also picked up Jeremy Roach from Duke. And so I think they're coming in. VJ Edgecombe is going to be maybe one of the best freshmen. This is a absolutely loaded for bear freshman class coming in. I'm going to say VJ Edgecombe is in the top of that class. You're talking about Cooper Flagg. You're talking about Dylan Harper. You're talking about Asharius Bailey. 2 really good for Rutgers, 2 really good freshmen for Rutgers there. But I'm going to say Edgecombe might be the best of all of them. Jaleel Bethea, a Miami signee, some really good basketball I saw out of him. He caught my eye. But when I watched VJ Edgecombe, I said, this guy is going to be something to really, really have to stop. So I got Baylor in the 6th spot. And a credit to Coach Drew and everything they've done down there. They've done it well. Number 7, Duke Blue Devils. We've got the Blue Devils in the number 7 spot. And they got Cooper Flagg, a number of other really good freshmen. They probably have a few guys laying around that you don't even know are still laying around that were supposed to be one and dones, and they're still sticking around. So it'll be interesting to see. Coach Shire, maybe of all of these top teams, might have the most movement on his roster to contend with right now. Losing Filipowski was big. Losing some of the other players. They have Roach and McCain. That's going to be big. That's going to be big. Again, reloading isn't as easy as everybody thinks. Everybody thinks reloading is easy, and it's not, because it's difficult to keep cohesion. It's difficult to keep chemistry when all of those things are going on. North Carolina, I'm going to put them in the 8th spot, right next to the Duke Blue Devils. They have received really, really good news where they have R.J. Davis returning, the step-and-act guard from New York. Terrific ACC career. Going to take advantage of an extra year here. And they also have, a very, very mercurial backcourt right now. I was a little reluctant to place them this high. They are North Carolina, and they are a blue blood program, but I was, with all of the other stuff going on here, I was a little reluctant, a little recalcitrant to place them this high, and simply just because of the amount of loss that they've suffered. You lose Cormac Ryan, you lose Harrison Ingram, you lose Armando Bacot. That's a big three to lose, and I know Davis is one of the best guards in the country, but you're putting an awful lot of load onto him and Elliot Cadeau. I think they might be able to handle it, but 8 could be a little bit lofty, especially when you hear who's in the 9 and 10 spot. Auburn Tigers in the 9 spot. Get out the Broom, and we're talking Johnny Broom. Really like Coach Bruce Pearl, everything that he's done there, and I think Bruce Pearl's had some social stance recently that's been have some veracity to it, and I've been excited to follow his Twitter account and see some of his quotes and some of his tweets amongst all this social tumult that we're having, and I think he's got this program pointed in the right direction. Definitely top 10. They're a tough team to play out every night. They're going to be a tough game for anybody that comes in and plays them. Iowa State Cyclones, again, this is a very, very deep returning team, very similar to Gonzaga. Give them a shot to move even higher. Arizona Wildcats, a whole lot of love. Got an old Led Zeppelin song for you, Kenny. A whole lot of love. We're talking about Caleb Love. We're talking about Caleb Love, the North Carolina transfer who decided to come back. That's going to bolster them. But again, they had some significant losses as well. Tennessee Volunteers out here in the Western Massachusetts land, we have what's called Barnes Air Force Base. Well, so do the Tennessee Volunteers. They have Barnes Air Force Base with Coach Barnes. He's built an absolute fortress down there in Tennessee. A school normally known for their great football, for their unbelievable programs that they've had in all different sports, but Coach Barnes has absolutely solidified himself down at Tennessee as an absolute guy that can pull it off every single year. Tennessee's not going to be down this year, folks. They have some losses. Okay, Texas A&M, got to give it to them. They got the buzz. Buzz Williams, good coach. Virginia Tech, when you see his teams, you're going to know that they're well coached. They're going to have some really good talent this year, but they're going to be extremely well coached, and they return some very, very good talent. Watch out for them as well. Arkansas Razorbacks, Coach Calipari on the move. All right. Is that going to be the rebirth of Cal? Is this going to be just another stop along the way? We're interested to see what happens at Arkansas. They have a really, really good lineup where they brought in some very, very talented freshmen. They also have Jonell Davis, who is a Florida Atlantic superstar for the last couple of years, signing as an experienced guard. Their backcourt's going to be really, really good. They have DeJuan Wagner and Jonell Davis. I think that's a good backcourt. Great place for Cal to start from. Not totally 100% sold on that roster right now, though. I know they were able to move a lot of the Kentucky guys over, and we'll see how that all fits and do some of that stuff, but I'm just not 100% sold on their roster right now, not compared to some of the other stuff you're seeing out here. I think they're kind of missing it a little bit where, to me, I think program integrity is really important right now. You're seeing that with UConn. Program integrity is important when you're importing and exporting players at such a rapid rate. It's not possible to maintain that program integrity, and I think that's gonna show up. I got Creighton. I got Creighton here. They're just one of the most well-coached teams in the entire country. I really like them. Trey Alexander, though, tough loss. You're going to lose Baylor Shearman, who was picked 30 by the Celtics. I think that's a grand theft auto for the Celtics as well. A very, very good pickup late in the first round. But losing to those two gentlemen, I think Ryan Kalkbrenner being back is going to be huge for them. That's something that they can build around. But that's going to be a tough haul without those two guys. Here's a team that I'm excited about. Not everybody else was as excited as I am, obviously. I have Rutgers at 16. I think they have two of the best young freshmen in the country. I think that's going to pay dividends. I also think the Big Ten's a little soft right now. I think Indiana and I think Rutgers in the Big Ten are going to have an ability to rise a little bit. Illinois, who's been really strong, might be down a little bit. So I think you're going to see those two teams have a really, really good ability, to elevate in that move. But they have two of the best freshmen in the country right now. Had they been able to keep their big man Cliff Omoruyi home, I think they would have had a chance to really, really get deep into an NCAA tournament with this lineup. I think Rutgers people should be excited. The Scarlet Knights are pointed in the right direction for sure. Okay, Purdue Boilermakers. You came off number one, number two, number three, just about all year. Zach Edey was one of the big reasons for that. But don't sleep on this team. Coach Painter's got his program pointed in the right direction. They have a lot of players returning from who have that deep playoff experience. I think that might benefit them well. I have them in there at 17. I think they could go higher. Marquette Golden Eagles. Oh, yeah. They've done a great job over there. Cam Jones is back. They got some good players back, but you also lost Tyler Kolek, who's one of the best point guards in the country, and they lost Oso Ighodaro, who's a very, very solid freshman big man for them, and I think he's going to be a better pro than people think. So we have Marquette at 18. 19 is the Indiana Hoosiers. Coach Woodson maybe has really gotten to the point, I think, where they've been patient, and the patience is going to pay off because their lineup's really good. I think Indiana could get a little higher than they have right now, but their lineup's pretty good right now. They have some good depth. They've brought in some of the good transfers, and I think they're going to be able to get Coach Woodson over the top. If it's not a good year, I think you're going to see Coach Woodson go to the woodshed. All right, Florida Gators. Walter Clayton is one of the best players in the country. I really like the way they do things out there. Their coaching staff, everything about them, I like what they do. I think they're going to be good, but they're also fighting an uphill battle. They're really fighting an uphill battle. The Texas Longhorns and Ole Miss Rebels, I have them bang right here. Two really good teams. Ole Miss is, Coach Beard, who was let go at Texas and then revamped at Mississippi, done a very good job. Texas Longhorns have a ton of talent on that team. They might be able to do a little bit more than they did last year, but I'm kind of looking to see them, show me a little bit. I know they're not from Missouri, but I'm a show me state kind of guy. Show me before I give you that bump. I want to see them get a little bit better. I have the Kentucky Wildcats at 23, and one of the reasons for that, I'm very high on their new coach, Coach Pope. I think there's a good deal of a change that they're going to have there, and where they're going to shift from being more of a read and react team or a dribble drive motion team to a team that runs heavily into sets, and some really good sets from what I saw about Coach Pope at BYU. So it's exciting to see how that whole thing will transition and go. But right now I have them at 23 because Coach Pope walked into an unfurnished living room because the previous coach, Coach Calipari, had a fire sale, took all the players with him, and that's kind of the time of day it is in college basketball. You can absolutely lose your entire program in the course of 1 year, have to rebuild it, and that's not that easy to do.
Wow.
I think you're seeing the teams that have the most integrity able to hold on to it. All right, so at 24, we got the UCLA Bruins, Cronenberg. All right, Mick Cronin. They have a Cronenborg. That was an absolutely terrible beer back when we were a kid. And if Cronenborg doesn't start to taste better out in the West Coast, there'll be a new destination for Coach Cronin as well. They're very quick on the trigger generally. UCLA, when they don't have good years, usually the coach is the one to suffer from that. Maybe giving Coach Cronin a year because they just were very successful in the past years, had some great talent. I think maybe giving them a year they might be revamped, but I don't know. I put in Illinois at 25th. They were 29-9 last year, second in the Big Ten. I don't think a lot of people don't have them in the top 25, but they have a great coach. They've got a good program, and I don't think they're going to be as bad as anybody thinks. Terrence Shannon obviously is a huge loss. All right, let's shift gears a little bit, Kenny.
Yeah, that was a quick 25.
Yeah, we just fly on the show, baby. We just fly around here. This is basketball. It comes easy to us. It's really fun to come in here and do it because I was always nervous about being able to execute a television show. But I was never really nervous about that. I would know what I'm talking about.
Right.
And so that kind of gives me a little bit of confidence to get through some of the stuff that we had when we first started. But here's some good ones for you. NBA earners from 23-24 active. Kentucky in the NBA right now has $519 million worth of contract. Duke, $277 million worth of contract. Those are the active contracts that are in the NBA right now, and they played at these schools. UCLA, $152 million. Gonzaga, $129 million. Arizona, $118 million. Texas, $114 million. But if you want to know why the big dogs are able to bark like the big dogs bark, because they get results like that. Kentucky, 519 million, almost twice what any other school is doing right now. Wow. And you also have Duke at 277 million. There's a lot of distance between second and third. All right, we go into Portal Potty segment here every once in a while. We try and keep people informed about the drastic changes going on in college basketball, trying to keep it rolling. And in 2019, we had, when that was the first time that they had opened this portal really widely, and it was 1,516 participants. This year, we had 3,055. What you're doing is you're increasing the percentage of people that are going into the portal exponentially every single year until we get to a place where everybody's in the portal. Pretty soon we'll be getting to a place where the portal is the portal. The portal is everybody. So right now we've got a good percentage of all of the whole cohort of all of these players that are playing college basketball, Division I, Division II, Division III. That entire cohort of people, pretty soon, right now, you're at 25% of the whole thing. I'm not sure. I think my head got smaller when I went to Maine because I came home and my headset keeps slipping on me. Maybe I got to change that. All right, so the NCAA is authorizing schools now, as well as taking on all of this other expense. The NCAA is now authorizing schools to take on additional expense by allowing some sports to increase the amount of scholarships that they're able to give. College basketball is going to go from 13 to 15. College football is going to go from 85 to 105. College baseball is going to go from 11.7, not sure how you get to 11.7 when you're dealing with human beings, but they're going to go to 34. That's more than triple. And then you're going to have softball and women, 12 to 25. That's a significant increase. And you're going to have volleyball, which can be both men and women. They're going to be able to go from 12 to 18. All right. That's just letting you know that the expenses and all of this stuff are being shifted onto the colleges. The money that are being shifted around different places, now you've got different buckets where you have an NIL that's on campus. You have a consortium or a collaboration or any of that other stuff that's happening off the campus. And then it's just a wild, wild west show to see what you can get wherever you can get it. I'm unsure why the NCAA is still here. I'm really unsure why they're still here. I'm not sure why Governor Baker, former Governor Baker, has a job. I'm not sure exactly why they're still here because they have zero teeth right now. They have had all of their teeth removed by different lawsuits, by different people pushing back on them because they've gotten away with absolute criminality over the past 25, 30 years that they've been running this thing. So now you're getting the pushback. All right, Big East Buckets comes out with the top 10 transfers for the Big East. St. John's listed, they have 2. Kadari Richmond and Devin Smith, 1 and 2. That's what people are excited about at St. John's this year. Plus, they have a couple of other really good players returning. Wooga Poplar, there's one of the great names of college basketball for you. Pete wants to do an all-name team someday, and we're going to get to that at some point, I assume. But Wooga Poplar's got to be one of the top names out there. Aiden Mahaney is the guard we talked about previously from St. Mary's. Terrific guard, going to really, really do well in Danny Hurley's system. He's going to come in. We have Malik Mack going to Georgetown. I think Malik Mack can really help Georgetown, but Coach Cooley's finding out awful quick, you know, when you have programs, and we refer to them as life alert programs where they have LifeLock, where they've fallen and they can't get up and there's nobody there listening, nobody there to help them, nobody there to help them get off the floor. Georgetown, St. John's, DePaul, a number of once vaunted programs have absolutely hit the deck. And they brought in Pitino to try and get St. John's, and they expected that thing to go up like a balloon, and it has not. And Coach Cooley went from Providence, where he had things cooking with gasoline. He was also living in his own backyard, which is certainly special, but went down to Georgetown. Georgetown was late to the NIL, and right now they're having problems getting up off the deck in the Big East, and it's going to show. And there's just a few other names here. Pop Isaacs at Creighton. Therese Reed going to Connecticut. That's a big pickup for Connecticut because it helps him up front. Ryan Cornwell going to Xavier. Scotty Middleton, Seton Hall picked him up. It's going to help them. And Wesley Carday is going to Providence. But right up top there, you can see why St. John's went after Kadari Richmond as hard as they did. The rest of the league didn't have a ton of weight when it came to bringing in transfers, working the portal. So we've also got some undrafted summer stars that we wanted to mention here for you as well. In our draft, a lot of these gentlemen were not undrafted. And we're going to really point note to a couple of them right now because I just wonder, how did they miss by as much as at least I think we hit? And some of the summer league performance of some of these young men certainly pans out. All right, let's go through it a little bit, Kenny. We got Kashad Johnson from Arizona. In the zone, had him number 10. Undrafted. Had a terrific summer league. He's going to be a very good pro for a very long time. Now, maybe, I'll say to people, maybe 10 might have been high. I don't think so, though, with his size, his ability, and what he produced in the college system. And I think that's important. I've said that numerous times on the show. Watch what they do in the college system, and you'll wind up with Dwayne Wade. Watch what they do over the course of a number of years, and you wind up with Michael Jordan. And so those are the things that are exciting to me. And one of the things that's really prevalent right now is the European influence that's coming into the NBA and how it's affecting some of our guys. It's one of the reasons that Kashad Johnson doesn't get drafted, because they drafted several European players ahead of him, and to my knowledge, he's a lot better than a lot of the guys they drafted. A lot better. Trey Alexander for Creighton, undrafted. In the zone, put him in at 42. Luka Doncic was picked at 42. The Joker, was picked at 42. I just don't know again. Trey Alexander had an unbelievable college career. We had him at 42. I probably should have put him a little higher than that. Really good summer league. He was undrafted. Dennis Jenkins, he was at St. John's, came out and really lit it up. If you're looking for an opportunity and somebody gives you an opportunity, Dennis Jenkins absolutely lit it up and took fire over there in the summer league. The interesting story was because he was at St. John's, but he was at Iona before that. And so it's interesting to watch like a Dalton Connect, who was at a smaller school, go to Tennessee and get that shot. That's the little bit of this portal and the NIL stuff that at least I can flavor, because some of these young men have dreamed their whole lives, didn't get recruited at maybe the right level. Again, you look at some of these decisions that are being made by some of these coaches, both in the NBA and also down at the college level, when they're signing this player and they're not signing that player. And you look at it and it kind of makes you go. So it does allow them to have that little bit of rebirth to prove, hey, I did really well at this school. Now bring me up to the top level and let me see what I can do at that level. That's one of the pieces that's a little bit plausible for me in this. P.J. Hall from Clemson, again, undrafted, in the zone 32. In the zone, had him at 32. When you say undrafted, that means 58 picks, and nobody drafted this young man. Based on his career at Clemson, based upon his abilities, and if you're going to go Euro in the game, a European style of basketball, well, then you better include some of the style of European player that they have. Tall, large, can shoot it, can rebound, can pass it. He's going to be a pretty good pro. I don't know how he goes undrafted. He averaged 12, 5, and 2 in the summer league. He also shot 37% in the summer league from three-point range. And that's what NBA teams are looking for. Somebody who can create spacing. Somebody who can stretch the floor for you. Boogie Ellis, USC, undrafted, had a very good summer league. And again, if we're going to go, we'll go Poplar. Boogie Ellis has got to be on that name team. Emmanuel Miller from TCU, looks like he's going to be okay. Tolu Smith from Mississippi, remember that name, folks. Brennan Carlson from Utah, he's going to be okay, folks. He can really shoot it. Isaiah Stevens, Colorado State, picked up by the Heat. The Heat really do a good job with their out of draft stuff, or the people that they do draft. They had Jamie Jaquez the year before, somewhere in the middle of the first round, and that was an absolute grand theft auto. I think they did it again this year when they drafted somebody we were very, very high on, Kel L. Ware out of Indiana. Very, very excited about him as a pro because he's got a very, very good pro body. Ray J. Dennis out of Baylor, also picked up by the Clippers. I didn't have some of these guys being drafted as well, but I think that there's some notables there, and some of those are going to really pan out. You know, when we're talking about Kashad Johnson, Trey Alexander, and P.J. Hall, those guys are all going to have pretty good pro careers, in my opinion. All right, so we got some zone notables also that we're going to put you in. We took Zach Edey at number 1, and he wound up going 9. Most of the prognosticators, most of the mock draft people, and again, I look at those things, and I do have some, they do have some bearing. They're informationally very strong, but when it comes down to evaluation, comes down to who really is going to decide what happens with these young men. Our paperwork, the stuff we've done in our first 2 drafts has been absolutely exhilarating and exciting. We're going to give it to you right here. Zach Edey, number 1. The people in Las Vegas agreed with us, and how they agreed with us is they moved him up to number 1 in Rookie of the Year voting right now. So if anybody's going to plunk down a couple of dollars on who they think is going to be Rookie of the Year, the top pick in Las Vegas who they think will be Rookie of the Year is none other than Zach Edey. I'm excited to see John Morant team up with him, who's a very, very mercurial, exciting guard. I think it's going to make a really nice tandem. I think the Grizzlies did something well there. I had Donovan Clingan at number 2. Donovan Clingan at number 2 from UConn, back-to-back champion. Back-to-back champions. Kyle Filipowski at number 8. We had him at number 8. How does he slip into the way into the second round to the Utah Jazz? There's a lot of things that make me go, about that, but we'll let that slip for another day. Mm-hmm. We had Kel'el Ware at number 11, and he's going to be a super pro for Miami. We have Oso. I'm going to give you 2 right here, and they're going to pair them up. Oso Ighodaro, Adem Bona. We had them both in the first round. They did not get chosen until the second round. They're going to be long-time NBA players. Watch Adem Bona when they pair him up with Joel Embiid with the 76ers lineup. This young man can block shots, cover the floor, got a very, very athletic upside, which is really, really important when you get to the NBA. When you get to the NBA, you got to have body, you got to have athleticism, or you got to be an unbelievable shooter of the basketball or some skill level that separates you from everybody else, possibly Marcus Camby with his shot blocking ability. But nobody ever is going to take Steph Curry in a bodybuilding contest, but he shoots that basketball better than anybody does. So he has that very, very high skill level. For the rest of the world, it's body and it's athleticism. And that's what you got to take into effect when you look into this NBA draft. I was shocked that the Houston Rockets took Reed Sheppard at 3rd. It hasn't happened in a very, very long time. Jalen Tyson, we had him at 13. What a summer league he had. He averaged 20 points a game for the University of California. We like this young man a lot. We think you got a steal there. Baylor Shearman, we had him at 17. The Celtics grabbed him up at 30. Celtics are doing a very good job with their stuff because they have Nehemias Queta stuck away right now, who's going to turn out to be a terrific NBA player. And now they're bringing in Baylor Shearman, who I think has a tremendous feel for the game, but is also the best shooter in this entire draft. Reed Sheppard, we had him at 19, and I would be more comfortable with that. Number 3 was way too high for a gentleman that didn't even start on his college team. All right, I think he should have been starting on that team, but they didn't start him. They had a very loaded team, and for whatever reason, he didn't start. He was obviously their best player, but I just didn't, see him at number 3. I saw, somewhere in the second round with him and Dalton Connect. I thought, not in the second round, but in the second phase of the first round, I thought that was more comfortable. Jaden Ledee, we had him at 24. I think you're going to pay a price there. Yves Missy, we had him at 29. Really think he's going to be a good pro because he fits into the mold of the pro that's going to be a high ball screener and shot blocker rebounder. Mm-hmm. He's not going to shoot the 3. He's not going to be an offensive presence. He's going to be a guy who dunks the ball, runs the floor, blocks a lot of shots. That's the NBA prototype right now. B. The NBA prototype A is the big center who can set the high ball screen and flare rather than roll to the basket. And there he's going to flare and wind up shooting the 3, stretch the defense immensely, take the other team's big man away from the basket. It's an unbelievable strategy. I got a way too early hot seat here, but I'm going to leave it. So again, we talked about a couple of storylines. Connecticut being poised for number 3 is absolutely huge, people. Can they pull that off? And right now, I would say, because when Florida did it, Billy Donovan's Florida team did it, they had a really loaded team that played together for 2 years. But when they were done, they were done. Horton was on that team. back in the Florida days. Okay, the guy who's on the Celtics right now, Al Horton, was on that team. They had an unbelievable team, but then it was over, and they vacated all of that team. It's not over for UConn. It's not over by a long shot with the team that they're returning. I expect that they will win the Big East again, and I don't know if they can hold number one all year, but who's betting against them? Who's betting against them right now? Coach Hurley's Huskies. He came back, turned down big dollars. He has enshrined himself in Jim Calhoun territory as one of UConn's great coaches. Just an unbelievable turnaround as a coach as well. And I'll be excited to be in Gamble this Saturday and watch them practice. The second line we got here is, can Calipari get a rebirth here? Can Calipari get another shot? Or is it just going to be a bunch of talented guys that don't know when practice time is, don't know what they're doing, and when they get out on the floor, they look like a bunch of really good individuals who have great individual talent, but they don't look like they know how to play together. And that's the coach's job. And I'm interested to see somewhere along the line, because what happens with Cal is Cal's a very loyal guy. All right, in a lot of respects. He's a very loyal guy in that he takes his staff with him, and his staff has remained intact for a long time, despite the fact that you lost to Oakland and that you lost to St. Peter's. All right, that's not just the head coach's responsibility. That's also on the assistant coaches who are doing the scouting, who are doing the player preparation, the player individual improvement, all of that stuff. Those things. But again, Cal's very, very loyal, and some of those same pieces are in Arkansas. And so I think that could be the definition of insanity, is that we're trying to do the exact same thing with the exact same result. We're just trying to do it over and over and over again. And I get it. He's got a cachet. They get great players. Boogie Fland is going there. You know, they're getting all the good players that they want. But they're also, at the end of the time at Kentucky, they were subjected to not being in first place anymore, also, as far as who was getting all the great recruits and who was able to put the best classes together, where Duke for the last couple of years has absolutely gone into hyperspace as far as recruiting. Nobody's even in their orbit right now. And then you have the University of Connecticut Huskies, who are really, really blowing it out. So when Calipari left Kentucky, they were pretty much reduced, you know, and they had been reduced to a level that Kentucky hadn't really seen before, because nobody ever beat Kentucky for players back in the day. Nobody ever beat them. Larry Bird had a great line about Rick Roby, who was the center from Kentucky. Larry Bird made a statement about Rick Roby, who played for the Celtics as well. He looked at him during practice and he said, "Roby, you might be the only guy that went to the NBA and took a pay cut." So we'll leave that there.
All right.
For what it is. I wanted to say rest in peace. All right, well, rest in the zone, as we say here. Bob Markham, longtime athletic director at UMass, South Carolina, number of different places, but mostly a long-time career at UMass, passed away just recently. Very, very strong administrator over the years, and generally a good guy. He was a UMass AD, went to Kansas, South Carolina, and long time AD. I think the fact that we're having Cooper Flagg be the number one player in the country, I think that's a little bit of a storyline as well, because there's a basketball rebirth, a resurgence, if you will, or maybe a place that's it's rarely ever been in New England, where they're having some unbelievable basketball talent. And right now, Cooper Flagg was the number one player in the class of 24, and he's attending Duke, but he's from the state of Maine. And I can tell you there hasn't been a whole lot of that going on, where the number one player came out of the state of Maine. Not sure it ever happened before. And so the other piece of it is now you have A.J. Debonsa, who is from Massachusetts, who's the number one player in the class of 2025. Maybe, you know, second, third. He's well within the top five everywhere. And this is just things that haven't really occurred before in Massachusetts, in Maine. So there's a really, really big resurgence of basketball up in this area, and it's exciting. It's exciting. The last piece I'm going to leave you with is there's a new pope in Lexington, Kentucky. Mark Pope is going to be the new coach there, takes over for Calipari. I'm going to tell the Kentucky fans right now, you're going to be excited about the way your team plays. I think because Kentucky's basketball, I never got them in Calipari. I never did, because I always knew from watching players that were in Clay County, Kentucky, Richie Farmer and guys like that, guys who grew up on farms and shot on baskets, just that were out in the woods sometimes that they grew up. I remember coaching against some of these gentlemen. It was so fundamentally sound, so really, really good. That's the heart of Indiana and Kentucky basketball. And that's why I never really got Kentucky and Calipari, because Calipari's never been known as that guy. Never been known as that X's and O guy where you're really going to sit there and sit down at a table with him and have a unbelievable in-depth discussion about plays and defenses and different stuff like that. That's one of the reasons I never got him. So I'm going to tell the people right now in Lexington, I think you're in pretty good shape. I think you're in pretty good shape with Coach Pope. All right, we're going to jump into the NBA right now, and we're just going to say very, very quickly, we're not going to cover the Olympics here anymore. We're just not going to do it. We're going to mention very, very quickly the benching of Jason Tatum. It was absolutely egregious. We shouldn't have corporate entities running our Olympic basketball teams. And when you see a guy who gets implanted onto a team way, way out in the West Coast in the most liberal of San Francisco, who never coached a day before in his life, and now becomes the Olympic coach, definitely had some success out in Golden State, but absolutely just a mouthpiece, just a puppet. And it's upsetting. And I didn't like to see what I saw there. And so when we see, we're just not going to cover it anymore. We're just not going to do it. Okay, so we want to break you into, like we did with our top 25 for the college ranks. We're going to smoke it right now. We're going to bounce right into the NBA, and we're going to give you our top 30. And they had a top 30 last week. We went through it. Strong disagreement with a lot of it. So we're laying out our own today, and we're going to go through them. So if you think we went through the 25 quick, Kenny, let's watch this 30 go, baby.
I've got my watch going.
We're going to absolutely light this fuse and go. Number 1, Boston Celtics, reigning champs. There's absolutely no way you're going to tell me that they're not going to come back next year as the overall favorite in the NBA. They have a beautiful lineup. They play very, very well together. Their best players are young. Jaylen Brown should have never been left off the Olympic team, and Jason Tatum should have never been benched in a 25-plus point blowout. Absolutely uncalled for. And you know why it happened. Do some research on why it happened, and you'll be equally disgusted as well. Wow. I'm going to move the Philadelphia 76ers up to the number 2 spot. The East Coast is going to be rough next year. You're going to have the Celtics trying to defend. The Sixers have absolutely taken their roster and given it an injection of adrenaline. What I'm talking about is Paul George coming over from the Clippers, which gives them a 1-2-3 punch that's absolutely devastating. Joel Embiid, former MVP, one of the best players in the game. Tyrese Maxey, really, really up-and-coming young guard, and now you've got the guard, the big man, and now you throw your swing man in there, Paul George. He's one of the best in the NBA. I think that really, really helps the 76ers, and if I was the Celtics, I'd be taking a quick look over my shoulder at that team and seeing if there's some other things that you have to add in order to bolster your lineup. What I would say also is the Sixers went out and grabbed Andre Drummond, formerly of St. Thomas More Prep in Connecticut, Oakdale, Connecticut, played for the great Jerry Quinn, and he's coming into the 76ers as well. Andre Drummond could really help that team, I'm going to tell you right now. There's a lot going on there, but when you say Paul George, there was a little bit of a slide in there with Andre Drummond because Embiid got hurt this year, and they were really hurting at that position. And now if anything goes on with Embiid, they're going to have an unbelievable backup and somebody who's a very strong veteran pro. I like Andre Drummond. I think there's a lot going on there. I'm going to go back to the Denver Nuggets, number 3. Everybody's excited about OKC. Everybody's excited about Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves. I hear you. I get you. But they still got the Joker. They still got Murray. They still got a really, really good loaded team that got clipped a little bit this year. It's tough to be successful back-to-back. That's what makes UConn run really, really good. We'll see how the Celtics handle that mantle next year, but you also have that's very difficult in the NBA to keep it rolling. They had some injuries at the beginning of the year. I'm going to move them back up to the 3 spot. I think the Joker returns. Minnesota Timberwolves, They have Anthony Edwards, and as they say, an old Billy Joel song, Anthony works at the grocery store. Anthony's grocery store in Minnesota right now. It's his shop. It's his show. He's going to run the whole thing. They've got the big cat, but it's Anthony Edwards' game right now. He's one of the best up-and-coming stars that's in the NBA right now. Watch the Minnesota Timberwolves grow. OKC Thunder. Coach Daigneault is from Massachusetts, from Leominster, Coach of the Year this year. They've got a great team. They got a really good young team, but they folded up a little bit in the playoffs this year. I want to see what happens next year, but they could be really good. They've got SGA, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. They got Chet Holmgren. They've got some great young talent. If they can hold that talent together, OKC's got some bright future. What you got to worry about is the NBA splitting them up in a hostile takeover. Like when they moved Shaquille O'Neal out to Los Angeles, when the Orlando Magic showed such great progress there. Okay, we're going to keep the New York Knicks. I'm not buying this whole Nova thing 100%. I like to see a little bit more diversity in their lineup. I'd like to see a little bit more thing happening there. But I'm going to go ahead and put them in the number 6 spot. I think Brunson's terrific. I think DiVincenzo's terrific. I think they have some great players on that team. But I also think they're still the same team that folded up this year a little bit because they just couldn't get through in the Eastern Conference. The Celtics were that strong and absolutely just put everybody down. 7, we have the Dallas Mavericks. They brought in Klay Thompson from the Golden State Warriors. So now you have Kyrie Irving. You've got Luka as a good big man. And now again, they're looking to go, as we say in the NBA, you either go on 2-2 time or you go on 3-2 time. And so, or 3-3 time, excuse me. 2-2 time means you got 2 really good players like the Mavericks did this year. Okay, they had Kyrie Irving and they had Luka. They're on 2-2 time. They're getting all the shots, they're getting all the touches, and they're the guys who are going to dominate and run the whole operation. All right, then you go and you look at now they're trying to go on 3-3 time. All right, they're trying to add that another piece in there, that next player in there that can give them that extra bolster, take a little bit off the pressure, because when you go 2-2 time, you saw what happened in the playoffs this year. They were on 2-2 time. The best 2 players they had folded up like a cheap lawn chair, and the Celtics ran through them like Grant went through Richmond. So you're going to have a situation here where they're going to look now and say, okay, we need more depth in order to compete with the Celtics. And they're trying anyway. Klay Thompson, I don't know if that's going to be cash flow or cash blow. I don't think he ended his career well with the Golden State Warriors. I think he benefited a lot from having people shading Steph Curry a lot. I just don't know how it's going to all fit. Kyrie will find him. Let's see if the jumper's working. Indiana Pacers, the reason I have them up this high is they get 30 open looks a game. Coach Carlisle, their offense is unbelievable. 30 open looks per game, as composed to the next highest in the NBA, which was 21. That's 9 open looks more than the opposing team when you're talking about wide open threes, wide open twos that can turn into, anywhere between 18 and 27 points, and that's unbelievable. That's unbelievable. I've got them in the 8th spot. Milwaukee Bucks, everybody's very high on the team. Giannis Antetokounmpo, they basically returned the same lineup that had trouble this year. I don't see that. The coaching change in the middle of the year where they went from Griffin to Doc Rivers, I didn't get that as well. I don't know what's going on over there, but I think that the Bucks could absolutely slip because they're still on holiday. They traded Jrue Holiday to the Celtics, and they've been on holiday from the playoffs ever since. They haven't made a run since. All right, the Cleveland Cavaliers, this is Donovan's bar. Sounds like an old Irish bar back in the Bronx. Donovan's bar. Donovan Mitchell taking over the entire franchise, re-signed a huge contract with the team, so now he's there for the good and long term, and they're going to build around him. He is one of the best in the game, folks. One of the absolute best in the game, Donovan Mitchell. It's Donovan's bar in Cleveland right now. Orlando Magic, they added Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who was of the Nuggets, and this guy might be the best glue guy in the NBA. I think that's going to help them. I don't think it's going to elevate them significantly as much as they think it is. They've got a pretty good young roster as well. This is the NBA. You've got to be loaded, and they're not loaded. Okay, the Memphis Grizzlies at 12. You have Ja Morant will be back in time, and then you also have Zach Edey. I think they've got a chance to be better than they were. I'm not saying this team's going to elevate into, where we have a power 15 every year. I'm not saying this team's going to elevate into a power 15 team right now, but there's a lot to be hopeful for. Getting Zach Edey in the 9th pick, I thought, was grand theft auto, absolutely. The Pelicans, they just brought in DeJounte Murray. I love Zion Williamson. I think either they got to put a team around him and get him going, or they're going to have to move him out to a major market somewhere where he can get his due. Because right now, playing on the Pelicans isn't helping him. It's not helping his career, and it ain't even helping the Pelicans. All right, the Phoenix Suns, setting sun on Kevin Durant. We'll see. I don't really think this team's any different than what they had last year. They picked up Bradley Beal, which I thought obviously was a good pickup because he's a great player, but what they gave up was their big man, and that really hurt because they just didn't have anything up front. Kevin Durant's not your center. Kevin Durant's a 3-man in the NBA. Plays out on the perimeter. You're going to have to get some guys that are down low that can handle the business down low if you want to be a good team. Right now, this team is a little bit too wing-laden, and they just don't have, that really, really good punch down low that I thought they had. And then they gave it up. And Beal just didn't play enough games. Sacramento Kings, they picked up DeMar DeRozan. This is a mercurial scoring guard. Could give the Kings a little bit of boast. Could also give it a little bit of a chemistry problem as well. But they had some losses, so they had to pick up somebody. DeMar DeRozan, he's pretty good if you gotta grab a scoring guard and somebody that can put the ball in the basket. The Los Angeles Lakers, I have them at 16, 17 area. I just think they could be better. But the way LeBron is playing in the Olympics right now, Anthony Davis playing in the Olympics, if they can pull that all together, I think they'll be all right. But they're talking about trading for Trae Young and some of these other trades that they're talking about. I just don't know who they have working in their administration right now because it's absolutely awful, absolutely awful. And some of the decisions that they're making, I mean, it really, really seems like one of their players is actually running the team. And Miami Heat, they picked up Kel'el Ware. I love that pickup. Jamie Jaquez, they've got a good group of young players. I just don't think they're that good. They have some other guys on that team that are solid. They made a great run because they've got a great coach, but I just don't think they're that good. And I don't think in the NBA, when you grind it up with a roster that's not that good, you might be able to make a run into the playoffs like that. But, keep an eye on what happens to the Mavericks this year, too. They could get ground up a little bit, too, because they elevated. They went up and they took a couple of people last year, knocked off 3 number 1 teams, no disregard to what they did, but sometimes that can backfire where you think you're better than you are, and you don't remember how you got there, and you don't dance with the girl that brings you to the dance. We'll see how that all goes. I like the Houston Rockets. They're on a playoff or bust run. I thought they had a chance with the Golden State Warriors this year. Just missed clipping them at the end for that last playoff spot, but Ime Udoka moving from Boston out to Houston. He's trying to rebuild his career out there. He's got a really cool young team out there, and I think they're going to be a problem for some people. 20, I got the Golden State Warriors. No Clay. I don't know if that helps or not. They still have dirty Draymond and a group of guys there that just aren't that significant to me. I think they're going to have problems. I think the more you put on Steph Curry, the more problem that you have. I think he's a great, great player and a great talent, one of the great shooters of our generation, obviously, but the more you ask him to do, the more you're going to have to place the load on him, and that's going to place too much weight on him and collapse the cart. The Clippers, they had a fire sale. There's guys going out of there. Paul George going out of there. Westbrook out of there. Who knows what's going to happen with Harden? They've got some, Harden seems to be in a different city every year. We'll see if he sticks around. But right now, Clippers, I would say, they could be one of in the West Coast that's going to be very, very difficult. I think they're going to really, really struggle next year. I really do. The Utah Jazz, Lauri Markkanen has been talked about as their trade bait. Does he stay? Does he go? I mean, he's one of the only things in the franchise right now that's something that you can hang a hat on. I would keep him and try and build on that, but they seem to be destined to try and move and trade him again. Chicago Bulls, Billy D. Sometimes I just don't get these guys because they trade for a gentleman by the name of Josh Giddey, who's a good forward, solid, going to get some minutes for them, and then they draft Matas Buzelis, who's exactly the same player as Goody. I just didn't get it. I just didn't get it. He's the same thing as Giddey. And so if you're looking to draft and looking to improve, It's not that easy to do when you just keep on picking up the same guys. I'll give you another example. Austin Reeves from the Lakers, great player, having a really good career. They took Dalton Connect as well. I mean, he's like the same guy. It's almost the exact same player. And so I thought the Lakers needed help up front. They certainly, drafted the best player available. But I'm going to go out on a limb here with 24. I'm going with the Brooklyn Nets. Everybody has them in 30. Cam Thomas, Nick Claxton, they're not as bad as everybody thinks. And the people down at the bottom of this thing are bad. And so I don't see the Nets being that bad. I don't know how they're going to do, because they've really been struggling and gave up Bridges. They gave up, they're one of their better players, one of their Nova players to the Knicks. And we go. So I don't know. Kenny, how much time do I have left here?
Oh, good
What
question.
time do we start?
You can go another 10.
All right.
Yeah.
So we got 10 minutes. I'm good. All right. So I got the Atlanta Hawks at 25. I think they're going to be really bad this year. Tradable. Is Trae Young tradable? I don't know. They've been trying to trade him, trying to rebuild. I think they just got a team of people here that are necessarily the veterans, but they're not that talented, and they really, really lack in a lot of different spaces. For where this team has gone in the last couple of years, been a little bit interesting to watch because they had a pretty good run in the playoffs there. You thought they were going to turn the corner with Young and move and groove, and then they just kind of just depleted their roster and kind of went out the door with it. I think the Hawks I have them at 25. They could be worse. 26, Charlotte Hornets. Again, I'm going to say the same thing I said about the Hawks. Could be worse. We don't know. It could go worse. Toronto Raptors, you have Barnes and Quickly, and they're quickly going to go down to the bottom of the NBA. There's just not enough talent on this team. I love Scotty Barnes as a player, and I think Emmanuel Quickly from the Knicks, not bad. They have R.J. Barrett out there as well. They just don't have a very good team. Toronto, if they wound up in 30, it wouldn't surprise me. Portland Trailblazers, 28. Ramsey and Walton came back right now. They couldn't take this team out of the 28 spot. If Coach Ramsey and Bill Walton came back right now, they couldn't move this team out of the 28 spot. That's how bad they are. Portland, it's a shame. It's a shame because I love the Walton gang. Washington Wizards, they want to go far with Sarr. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And they've got some issues out there as well as far as talent and just they could be 30. They could easily be 30. I picked the Detroit Pistons because Monty, let's make a deal, Williams was their coach for 1 year, and they paid him $65 million not to come back.
Wow.
One of the worst rosters in the entire NBA. One of the worst rosters in the entire NBA, and you fire your coach. That's ridiculous. Okay. We have had some great, great success with our viewership. One of the things that people always is interested in is some of the old school basketball that we talk about. So we're going to lay it out for you here. Might have talked about this in an earlier show, but we're going to lay it out right here. We have what's called the GOAT. Okay? The GOAT is who's the greatest of all time. Okay? When we say GOAT, we're talking about who had the greatest game of all time. Who had the one single game that's the greatest of all time. I looked at this and I could not believe my eyes when I saw this stat line.
Okay. Oh, please share with us.
53 points, 32 rebounds. This is all in one game. I'm going to start again. 53 points. The gentleman averaged close to that for 1 year. I'm giving it away here a little bit. 32 rebounds in the game. 14 assists. He's 7 foot. 24 blocks and 11 steals. Who could have a game like that? None.
You're not going to make me guess on that one, are you?
I'm going to give it to you.
Please.
None other than the great Wilt the Stilt Chamberlain. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. I'm going to read it again. 53 points, 32 rebounds, 14 assists. He's 7 foot. 24 blocks. He must have blocked half of the other team's shots. And 11 steals. He was an absolute, maybe the best athlete ever to play basketball. When you talk about his decathlon accomplishments, beach volleyball, unbelievable. All right, so we like to go back and forth here, and everybody always likes to go back and forth. And some of the different rooms that we place our show in, They have where LeBron James is the greatest of all time. Michael Jordan is the greatest of all time. Larry Bird is the greatest of all time. And we like to go back and forth. That's a great, great discussion. We like to go into it and get back and forth with it. But I'm just going to give you a little bit of Bird and MJ right here.
All right.
Okay? Head to head in the regular season, Michael Jordan was 11 and 17. Larry Bird, conversely, was 17 and 11. Now, for Michael Jordan to get 11 victories against them, that's pretty good because he didn't have a very good team. Playoffs, 0 for 6, and Larry Bird 6 and 0. Overall stats in games, Michael Jordan 1,072 games, Larry Bird 897 games. Points per game, Michael Jordan 30.1, Larry Bird 24.3. We go edge to Jordan there. Total rebounds per game, 6.2 for Michael Jordan, 10.0 for Larry Bird. We give Larry Bird the edge there. Assists per game, 5.3 for Michael Jordan, 6.3 for Larry Bird. Okay, 6'9" and the average 6.3 assists. Unbelievable. Steals per game, Michael Jordan 2.3, Larry 1.7, slight edge to Michael there. Blocks per game, 0.8. 0.8. They were identical in their blocks. And with two gentlemen, and I'm going to say this to Zach Edey right now. Stay on your feet, big fella. Stop chasing every block shot. You're not in college anymore. They don't need you to do everything. You just sprained your ankle, chasing a shot into the hinterlands that you wanted to block. Taking advice from here, these guys, two of the greatest players in the game, they stayed on their feet quite a bit. 0.8, 0.8 on blocks. Field goal percentage was almost identical. 49 for Jordan and 49 for Bird, 49.7, 49.6. 3-point field goals, 3.27 for Jordan, which is low, 32, that's not that good. 37% from Larry Bird, which is really good. Free throws, 83% for Jordan, 88% for Larry Bird. 88% means, folks, he didn't miss. He rarely ever missed. Okay, Mom, I made the Olympics segment right here, but Mom, I got benched as well. Just going to talk about it very, very briefly. Nike executives have no business running the teams that we have our gentlemen playing on, okay? And they were critical with Jaylen Brown. That's why Jaylen Brown wasn't put on the team. And then when Tatum said Brown belonged on the team, one of his teammates, he's trying to back up his teammates' play, then they didn't play Jason Tatum the entire next game. One of the absolute best players in the game, and it was an absolute, Steve Kerr knows this. Steve Kerr played the game. It was an absolute slap in the face. And if I was Steve Kerr, I would have said, I'm going to go home before I'm going to do that. I would have told the people at Nike, I'm sorry, but I'm going to go home before I'm going to bench this young man, embarrass him in front of the entire world. It was terrible. And that's the last thing we're going to say about it. But all of our Celtics fans, we're 100% with you. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown got the shaft. If you want to know who gave it to them, it might have been the boys up in Nike. Okay, Steve Kerr, really disappointed in that. Very, very disappointed in that. All right, so we are just about out of time, Kenny.
We are.
Just about out of time. I wanted to, we love Pete on this show. Pete's out now doing all the stuff that Pete likes to do, and Pete does a great job. But Kenny does a great show on this thing as well, and I really, really enjoyed having you with me today. I got used to Pete, obviously. We do our ginger ale. We have our Canada Dry ginger ale tradition that we do, and so we kept that alive for you today, Pete, and come back next week. We'll have you ready, rocking and rolling. In August, we're going to have some other guests on the show as well. We were going to bring one in today, but I just couldn't do it without Pete being here, and Pete was going to try and do it remote, and I said it's too high anxiety for me. And so we just wanted to, again, reiterate and thank everybody who's been watching our show. We're really having a good time with this show, and it's something that we've done now. It's 67 shows. We're going to hit 100 at some point we'll probably have a little bit of a party for that when we hit 100. But it's been very, very exciting and very, very rewarding to do the show. What we think we deliver here is something that's not affected by any of the corporate stuff that we sometimes talk about here. When you're going to watch a show on ESPN or you're going to watch some of the other stuff that's on this corporate network style, you're going to have a certain slant to it. And it's one of the reasons I think that they're having such problems in the draft and some of the other places, because they rely so heavily on those people. And what In the Zone has become this place where everybody can go. It's free, and you just get hoops all day long, because we know there's a lot of round ballers out there. We know there's a lot of people out there that live, eat, sleep, and die with hoops. High school hoops, college hoops, pro hoops, international hoops. We love it all, obviously. But as we go, and we say, when we come back, we're obviously going to have a couple of guests with you, but we're also going to be able to give you an update on UConn's practice that we're going to hit on Saturday. Really, really excited about that, because I want to go as a coach also and try and get a little peek inside and see what these guys are doing that's bringing that great success. It was an absolute joy to be back, folks. We'll see you next week. You are in the zone. Rich Sutter and Ken Stomsky. First time, won't be the last.
Thank you, Coach.